everybody. Today when we talk to our author, I'm going to be dressed in a costume. So let's see if we can surprise her. I want to see how she reacts. 3, 2, 1.
Oh my God, that's perfect.
Sometimes you just have to do a Kaiba.
Yes, 100% agree. I love it.
All right, now that that's over. Oh wait, hair down. Somebody said to me when I was doing a video, like I did a welcome video, and I showed it to somebody, and they said, "This is great. You need to make yourself look better, though." I was like, God only did so much for me. It kind of is what it is. All right.
Yeah.
So now that I'm gonna start to look kind of human again, because I'm cutting this whole part out. Excuse me, I'm gonna strip in front of you. I hope you don't mind. So, hi everybody, and welcome to our video. Today we're going to be talking with Kirsten about her book, When I Found You. I like this book very much. I wanted to start off this video by, I'm going to say that part again. I'm going to start off this video by reading us just a little bit of the beginning to kind of give you a flavor for it. So, Kirsten, I'm going to read part of your book. Disclaimer. I am not a voice actor. I've never been a voice actor. And I'm going to try my best not to make this sound like in another world, in a post-apocalyptic world.
That'd be fine with me too. I'm okay with that.
All right, let me give it a shot. So this year sucked. Every single brutal moment. I'm glad it's over, but a new year doesn't mean a fresh start. So I took a walk to clear my head and ended up in the one place I could breathe, the place I associated with Dad and now Mom. The loneliness intensifies as I stare out over an expanse of lower Manhattan, an ominous twinkling maw of dark disappointment. I embrace the howl of the wind whipping my hair, my eyes water and my cheeks and nose burn from the icy chill. I turn my back against it, snagging a perfect view of Freedom Tower gleaming in the distance. I had to bribe the guard to give me 10 minutes on the observation deck. My father worked in this building years ago. I can't see the Empire State Building without thinking about him or Mom. It seems only fitting to spend my final moments where I feel closest to them. I highlighted it. It's highlighted.
Oh my gosh.
I'm telling you, I highlighted it. So tell us a little bit about the book.
Okay, so I actually got the idea for this book about 10 years ago. I wrote the first scene, a very rough draft of the first scene, in 2012. Just had an idea, and I ran with it, and I only got the first scene down. I didn't know what the rest of the story was. All I knew was this woman was struggling. She was on the observation deck of the Empire State Building, and she looks out over lower Manhattan and she sees the Twin Towers, not Freedom Tower. And she knows that she is not in the time that she's supposed to be because they don't exist anymore.
Yeah.
So that was kind of my spark of inspiration, just that little kind of kernel of looking out and seeing the Twin Towers instead of Freedom Tower. And so I set the story aside for years because I had so many other projects and other things that came up. And I think it was last year. Yeah, the beginning of last year, I'm like, you know what? I need to sit down and I need to write this book. So I had finally got to the point where I was comfortable plotting.
That's the hard part.
Yeah, it is. So I actually sat down and I was like, okay, so here's where we start. Where do we go from here? And I just kind of outlined it. And I'm like, okay, so she goes back in time and she falls in love with her dad's boss. And I'm like, this is going to sound super weird. kind of creepy.
But
Like
it
you go
works.
back to 1985 and she's looking for her dad, but she sees her dad's boss and falls in love with dad's boss.
I'm glad she didn't fall in love with her dad. That's,
Everyone kind of gets really nervous and they're like, where is this going? I don't know where this is going. And I was like, no, she's not going to fall in love with her dad. I mean, I really wanted to show her reconnecting with her dad to kind of grasp that little moment that she never had the opportunity to have.
Mm-hmm.
But as that this is a romance, I really focused hard on her relationship with Arthur more so than with her dad, even though I thought it was really important for her emotional growth to, kind of seal that disappointment of not having her dad growing up. So that's where the idea came from. And I ended up writing that book. It just like poured out of me. That one took me less than 2 months.
Oh, wow.
To write that one.
Nice.
So
and for the authors who like struggle for like 6 months to a year, they're probably like wanting to burn you alive right now.
It has been a very long journey to get to that point where I can write, that. But I am also fortunate that up to this point, I don't work full time. I'm a stay-at-home mom. I homeschool my kids. So while they're working, I can do my writing and my creative adventures. Yeah. So it does give me a little more flexibility than most people have. But, it's my very first novels came out during Nano. So that concept of push and get it all down and edit later has been with me since the very first novel that I've written. So
NaNoWriMo is the devil. I'm terrified of NaNoWriMo.
No. I think I've written 5 novels during Nano.
Oh, wow. Then for you, it is not the devil. For you, it is the muse.
It is. At the time, it was like, I need something to push me. I am not internally motivated at all, which makes, self-publishing terrifying because like you're your boss. You have to get this done. I'm like, yeah, but I don't self-motivate very well. So I do purposely find things that are going to help set a goal and then help me stick to it. So Nano helped me in the beginning to get used to that idea. And then obviously writing 50,000 words in 1 month is that's overwhelming because you're writing every day. It gets intense. So me spreading that amount of writing over 2 months is more manageable. So that's kind of just how I view that. So it's not for everyone.
Yeah. Well, I know that the opening makes your book sound, like a little bit, morose and stuff like that, but it kind of moves on from that quickly. And, nothing kind of says that better than, I have my little stickies up in here. So knowing that we go back in time, let's see, the colors and styles are most definitely last century's wardrobe, that's for sure. I bite my tongue as she shows me each outfit combination. Oh my God. I remember dress up for the 80s day at school, but I don't remember these patterns and fabrics. What is wrong with this decade? So why the 80s?
I don't really remember what sparked specifically the 80s. I think part of me was like 1985 because, well, that's when Back to the Future came out.
Going back in time.
Yeah, and so it was kind of like this whole nod to, I get a lot of inspiration from film, like little nuggets. I have Easter eggs everywhere in all of my books, even in historicals, they're everywhere. But having that Easter egg of like 1985 tied to time travel was kind of my nod to Back to the Future. But it was also, I didn't want to go, everyone goes back in time, they all go back centuries. And I didn't want centuries. I wanted something that you could go back and it was still familiar, but you knew it wasn't contemporary.
Yeah.
Like you knew you were out of place. Again, drawing inspiration a little bit from like Hot Tub Time Machine, where
I
it's
love
like
that movie.
they end up. I love it too. So you get those inspiration from, you know, like showing up and you're like, she didn't live it before because she wasn't born yet. But, you know, to have that, like, it's familiar, but it's not familiar. And you don't really know how to navigate it until you're there and you realize, okay, there's no cell phones, there's no internet, there's no Starbucks, there's no, like, what?
But there's
You
also
know,
no DeLorean. So
yeah,
I just
there's no
want to
DeLorean.
call that out. They're missing the DeLorean.
Well, and that was the other thing. Like I am not I'm not a scientist in any capacity. So tackling time travel in the story, I didn't want to make it overly technical.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
it wasn't like I you know, she built a time machine and ended up doing it. It's more of a time slip
Yeah.
than time travel. So she just kind of falls down, you know,
The
this
rabbit hole.
pocket. Yeah, kind of, really. But but yeah, I wanted to keep it kind of subdued, but then tie in kind of the thoughts that we have about time travel. Like, oh my God, if I talk to someone, am I going to screw it up? Am I going to, you know, cause this person to never be born? Am I going to, you know, change, or, you know, like time, or like Hot Tub Time Machine, where he's like, you know, what if Google was never invented? And then he changes the name of it. So
I loved it in the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy when I'm still never sure how to say his name, Zaphoid Beeblebrox. He's like,
yeah,
you know, I'm the fourth and my grandfather is the third. He's like, you know, it's a time travel thing. Like, oh wait, no, his grandfather's the fourth and he's the third. It's like a time travel thing. Like one of them sired the other, like went back in time and became his own great great grandfather or something.
yeah. And I think that's the one thing that appealed to me about the whole time travel piece, was that I could just have fun with it.
Yeah.
You know, it's not like an exact science where we actually have time travel and it's, you know, everything's figured out. It's so open to interpretation, and to have fun with it is just, it was just too good of a chance to pass up.
Yeah. Well, let's excite other people with, because I had fun. You had some really great lines in here, so I'm gonna stick up with this. So I'm just gonna read a couple of your lines that I really really liked and I thought were like super cute and amusing. So
Okay.
yeah. So hold on, I'm not gonna start with that one. I'm gonna start with, oh my goodness, so many good ones. All right. In talking with the male lead character, the female lead character. So this is Arthur and Kate. So I stuff more pasta in my mouth so I don't trip over my words and say something that makes the universe implode. Because honestly, I feel like that a lot. Life is a joke, and I'm no longer amused. I liked that one. I'm often no longer amused.
It's true.
Sweet mother of Captain America, that ass. I literally snort laughed. It was hilarious. Okay. So when you think about your writing, knowing that you had that serious part, but you have these lighthearted moments, like what is your thought about balancing? Because I know people lean on the rom-com and then people lean on the angst. Like, how do you find your balance? Is it differ per book, or?
Actually, you know, I think this has kind of been a journey of self-discovery writing. I know a lot of people are like, you know, they ask like, you know, who inspires your books, or, you know, is there parts of you and your characters? I'm like, well, there's always parts of me in all of my characters, not a copy of me specifically, but they are a way for me to process what's going on around me.
Yeah.
And kind of process my own emotions. Like in 2020, I had a lot of built up frustration and just didn't know what to do with it. And I wrote a lockdown love affair. And it was literally me processing what was going on in the world around me at the moment and kind of dealing with my own stuff. So this book, I think, showing that balance between the seriousness and, you know, those humorous moments is just my way of coping. Yeah. I mean, it's always been that way, that, you know, yeah, there's serious moments and, you know, but we always have to find those little moments of joy and humor where we can find them, because we're not always guaranteed to have those.
That's
and
true.
I think that that's the most realistic part of this book, is that moment where, yes, she's struggling. She's not in the time, her time period anymore. She's, had all this loss and disappointment, and yet she's given this opportunity. How does she handle it? Well, humor is kind of her way of coping and dealing with it. But also, you can't take yourself too seriously when, you get into some of these situations. So I try to balance it that, you're not laughing at something absolutely ridiculous in the middle of a scene that's meant to be, a core piece of them, coming to terms with their life, or, dealing with loss. But at the same time, it is realistic for us to always find humor in little moments of sadness. Because, I mean, you just, if I always remember the quote, if I don't laugh right now, I'll cry.
Yeah.
So I think part of my writing style with that is just remembering that there always has to be moments of levity, at just random moments. I mean, whether it's, you're at a funeral and you are sad and you're grieving, but then you find those little memories or those little moments that make you laugh, that remind you of something happy and joyful. Or, you're, it's one of those things you have to find the balance. And that's one of the core themes of a lot of the books I've been writing lately, is just finding balance.
Yeah. Well, I know that I've been in some really horrific, experiences, but I still had moments where I said, "Oh, Captain America, that ass," it's
I mean,
you gotta find
something funny. Right. Be like, I should not be thinking that right now. Okay.
However, it is taught.
Some thoughts. Yeah. Some thoughts are inside thoughts.
Well, you never know. If you make an inside thought an outside thought, what happens then?
I don't know. Well, at least she didn't. Yeah. At least she didn't say that line out loud, because he would be like, what the hell are you talking about?
Yeah, Arthur would not have really gone for that.
No.
So speaking of Arthur, this book has its nice amount of spice. And when they finally connect, you did write sex from the male perspective. Now,
Yes.
I personally only write sex from the male perspective. And I know exactly why. But why do you do it?
I've always viewed any scene that I write, but especially sex scenes, I find that I need to know whose perspective this is going to impact the most. So who has the most to lose or gain in that scene?
Okay.
And that's who I give that scene to. So like, I have to kind of follow the lead of my characters. Yes, I outline, but at the same time, I follow their lead, that if it doesn't feel like this is a natural progression for the storyline, I'll adjust it if I need to as I write. But when it comes to the sex scenes, I needed to show, because I mean, he's been a bachelor. I mean, he's not interested in commitment. He's not interested in this. And this woman shows up on his doorstep and is like hiding something from him, and he doesn't know what. But yet he's still attracted to her, and he wants to help. And so there's this, I needed to show that connection, that he was willing to kind of go a little bit further than he typically would have. Having someone else in his space, having someone kind of barge in on his life is, it should be discomforting for him, but it really wasn't. So having at least one of the scenes where they have sex from his perspective seems like it was just a natural progression of the story. I personally love writing from the male perspective, And I love books that have a balance where you alternate back and forth, which is what I did with this one. And don't ask me why this book came out in first person. It just did. And there's nothing I could do to change it in my brain. It just how it was.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I love having, both people's thoughts through the story. And for this story specifically, I think it worked really well to kind of show his uncertainty and his growth, and then her dealing with the massive upheaval.
Your reason is so much more well thought out than mine. My reason is literally, I know how I feel. I want to see what he feels. And isn't that better? So, yours is like this intellectual reason that's like very writery. I'm just like, what does it feel like from the other side? Quite literally.
Well, you know what? And I'll be honest with you now, thinking about it, that's probably how I was when I wrote my first novel. I was like, let's do it from his perspective. And, but
I'll never forget, and please, God help me, don't ever let my brother watch this video. I remember when I called him one day, and I said, my brother and I are close. I said, what does it feel like when you masturbate? And I think he almost dropped the phone. He was like, what? And I was like, just tell me. It's fine. We're close. Just tell me. He did not tell me, but I still asked the question. Men don't necessarily have the words for that, I guess.
No, they don't. I'll be honest. I pray that my husband doesn't watch this video, but I have actually asked him that question before, because I'm like, so curiosity here.
With the P and the V, what is the P in the situation?
Like, you're going to have to give me some kind of an idea. Like, how do I describe this? I don't know. So, yeah. So, yes, I have asked that question. I have a friend who's a guy. We've been writing together on and off for, oh my gosh, 20 years.
Oh, wow. That's a commitment.
Yeah. Well, it's been on and off, but we met in college, and we were like inseparable for an entire year in college. Like, we would just go and sit at the diner and write all the time. But like, he was my insight into the male point of view. Like, I could ask him anything and he would answer. I remember I wrote a novella, and I sent it to him, and I was like, I need to know from the male perspective, is this accurate? And he read it, and he gave me my notes and stuff, and he goes, I just want you to know, I wasn't able to stand up at work for an hour.
Perfect answer.
So, needless to say, Kirsten's work is not safe for work.
Well, tell us more about your work. What other books do you have out? Where do we find you?
Oh my gosh. Well, I have, I cannot stay in my lane. So I have both historical and contemporary and steampunk and time travel and prohibition.
And they're all romance. Yeah?
All romance. I do not deviate from romance. Yeah. I love my happily ever far too much to abandon it. I've always been hyper fixated on, relationships. I love movies. So, watching the relationships kind of develop, I was shipping people before there was a term for shipping, guys. I'm just saying. And it's funny because my maiden name is actually Shipwash.
So
my nickname in high school was Shippy. So
that's cute.
So there you go. But yeah, so my books are all over the place. My first 2 novels were medieval. And then I wrote a series of novellas that were set in the late Victorian England. And then I have a Victorian steampunk that's just a standalone that I just wrote, and I absolutely love that one. I have a prohibition one that I wrote, inspired by something my husband told me about his family, because they live on the Mississippi River. So like
I'm told that that book is
Prohibition.
very sobering. Sorry.
It
I'm
is
sorry. I'm
very
sorry. That was my
sobering.
pun for the day. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry.
No, it's not sobering at all. It's quite a mess. No, it was a lot of fun to write. And then I have then I started my adventure with contemporaries, and I absolutely love having that freedom with contemporaries. I wrote 3 contemporaries in 2020. I wrote several over the last 2 years. But it's the most recent series that I did is the Her Confessions series, and it's all from the female perspective. It's all from the heroine's perspective, and it's the first one is Confessions of a Fangirl, and then Confessions of a Gamer Girl, and Confessions of a Glamour Girl.
Oh crap! I got 2 out of the 3 of those. Glamour, not so much. I mean,
yeah. Well, the glamour piece of that one is actually Lily only wears vintage clothing. So she wears 1950s vintage to work every day. So that one that's just her trademark. So you actually meet her in the first 2 books, and now she gets her own book. I couldn't just leave her stranded. So
she was just too good to leave alone.
Yeah. Well, and the cool part about that was that I actually have Easter eggs from that series and into my my Sunshine Meets Grump series that I wrote in 2020. So that the universe is kind of tied together. There's characters that overlap. But then if you read When I Found You, there is a character in that book that makes, well, his company makes a subtle appearance in the Her Confessions book.
You've got a multiverse going. Well, no, it's not even a multiverse. It's like everyone's like in a nice same verse. What's the opposite of a multiverse?
Yeah, I don't really know. I mean, I kind of took a little bit of leeway with it because I wanted to have them kind of tied together, but they're not. I don't say that they take place, in our universe. Even when I write contemporary, I'm not saying that this is actually our specific. This is my interpretation of this universe, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Because I just have fun with little details and kind of move things around. So if I get details of New York City wrong, I apologize in advance because I've been to the city multiple times, but I have never walked the roads that I write about.
You're not a New Yorker.
No, I'm not a New Yorker. But it's
apologies to all New Yorkers.
I do have some friends who are in New York, and sometimes I'll send them a message and be like, okay, do you guys use this term? Or, is this feasible to go from here to here in this amount of time? So, sometimes I have to ask for help, but I always beg a little bit of indulgence with readers because my theory is I'm not going to be historically accurate. I'm going to be historically feasible. So if it could have happened, it's fair game.
I like it. I cheated too. In one of my books I wrote about Boston because I, lived in and went to school in Boston. I'm like, easy. I know how to write about Storrow Drive. It's a mess.
Yeah.
So tell us where to find you, like your website. Are you on Amazon? Are you on, what are you doing?
So I am active on Twitter. I am active on Instagram. I have a website.
And we're going to put links for all of this below. Yes, absolutely.
I'm not going to ramble them off because you're never going to be able to, remember all of them. But yeah, I'll give you links for everything. I have a monthly newsletter that I send out just to kind of give brief updates if there's any sales or specials that are going on. I have one. Oh, and for newsletter subscribers, I have a whole bunch of free short stories that if you sign up, you have access to all the free short stories. And so they run the gamut too. So I've got like 3 historical and I've got 3 that are contemporary, and I'm constantly adding to them because, I'm a glutton for punishment and I can't just stick with one specific, length of book or one project. I'm all over the place. So,
well, that's the way we like it. That's the way
yeah. I also like having a short story. Like if I only have 15, 20 minutes, I like having something short to kind of indulge in, if I don't have time to sit down and read a full length novel.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So
what do you have coming next? What's coming up?
So while we're talking about When I Found You, I am actually currently in the editing process of writing the second book, which will be Rob and Marcy's story. And that one is called Can't Fight This Feeling.
And I can't fight this feeling anymore.
And and that is the most apt song for this book because, oh my gosh, these two, it is a roller coaster. And this one actually dives a little deeper into Marcy's past, and she has an abusive ex. So this does touch very lightly on her struggling with domestic abuse. So I will put that caveat out there that if that's something that, you struggle with and you're not comfortable reading, then you have my permission to skip the book, because I know that can be rough. However, I did tackle the topic in a way that was not gratuitous and not over the top, but it does showcase the struggles that survivors of domestic abuse have to deal with.
Yeah, and not every book is for every reader, but one of the things that I find really interesting that I've heard lately is sometimes people with trauma like that like reading books with things like that because it helps them process. It helps them process and move beyond it. And absolutely more power to people who want to avoid it for their own mental health, and more power to people who want to do it to kind of work through something. Everything is valid.
Yes. Everything. And I just throw that caveat out there because, my mom works with survivors. So I know that sometimes that can be something that's unsettling for them to deal with when they're not ready to.
Yeah.
And so I absolutely understand. However, caveat, this does have a happy ending. I do give her a happy ending.
You said you're obsessed with happy endings.
That is my guarantee. You will always have an HEA with me. Always. There will always be a happy ending. Whether it's happy for now, that's fine. But there will be satisfaction at the end of the story. You will never be left crying and miserable because I kill off a character. I am
give
not
no such
Martin.
Promises.
Yeah. And you know what? And I have friends who write, I have a friend who writes horror, and I have read her stuff, and man, she's amazing. But I'm sitting there going, I can't write that. I need a happy ending. So it's just, it's part of me. I do write under a pen name as well, but also same thing applies. There's always a happy ending. Although that one I did torment the characters a little bit.
Hey, that's par for the course. They all need to suffer to grow, right?
Yes.
Or to suffer because we're sadistic, the jury's out on that one.
Jury is out on that one. But I agree. I mean, I think that for any story to really hit home, you need that struggle, and you need them to be able to overcome that and to deal with things, and, to hit that wall and have to, really challenge themselves to grow. So I think that's important. So you definitely see that in Marcy and Rob's story, which is not time travel, because now we're firmly embedded in 1985. But I am currently writing the third book, which is called She Gives Love a Bad Name.
Oh my God, how many times are you going to make me sing through this? You give love a bad name.
So
we're gonna karaoke this thing.
I do have playlists for all of the books, so I will be including a hyperlink or the QR code for the Spotify playlist for each of these books, because I did go through them. Like when I write them, I actually have their playlist playing because it's just too good. Not only that, why would I not do that for a book set in the 80s when you have a decade of such great music? So,
and plus it makes everybody ready to look out for your next book, because we've got And I Can't Fight This Feeling Anymore, and we've got She Gives Love a Bad Name, and I'm sorry.
Do you want to know what book?
I am neither a vocalist. I do not read books out loud. I do not sing. I just talk to people and make funny faces.
Great. No, it's fantastic. But so do you want to know what book 4 is called?
Of course. What am I going to sing this time? This time you're going to sing it. Sing it. Sing it.
Owner of a Lonely Heart.
Stop it.
So yeah, you'll get Owner of a Lonely Heart, and then book 5 is Just What I Needed.
Oh, whoa, that one's on the tip of my tongue. I think you're just what I needed. Yeah. Everybody knows when I was born.
And that one will be a time travel, because it'll be going from 85 to present day.
Ooh, we're wrapping it up. So we go to the past and then we go to the future.
Yes. Right.
It's wonderful. Anything else you want to let us know?
Well, I can't really think of anything. I mean, each of these books that I'm working on for the 1985 series is going to be different than the last. Like, When I Found You is going to be has a very different vibe than what Can't Fight This Feeling. And now the one that I'm working on, She Gives Love a Bad Name, is a little bit darker, a little bit. Well, he's a detective and she's a cat burglar. So, I mean, I don't really know how to really categorize this one. So,
sexy.
Yeah, that one has been interesting. So I'm trying to get that one finished up so that I can work on the next one, which book 4 is actually the detective's brother. He is a one-armed bartender.
I see where that's going. For all of us Reylos who also are rats. Maybe. And if you don't know what a Reylo is or a rat is, I don't know why you're watching this video, but welcome. You'll probably learn.
Well, just for those who are Reylos and rats, I did base Grant's character off of Adam Driver. And his brother, Claude, is very similar. So I actually borrowed a little bit of inspiration from Logan Lucky on that one.
So when you say inspiration, I noticed that your cheeks may have flushed a bit deeper. So I'm not gonna touch on that. I'm just gonna say, will the rats be fed on schedule?
Yes, you will.
That's
actually, Adam Driver has inspired several of my books. So, A Lockdown Love Affair. My character Ben in that one. And on the cover, I have that she's a ray of sunshine. Like, I don't know how much clearer I can be that this was absolutely a Reylo AU.
Oh my gosh, Reylo is a powerhouse of romance writers, right? 2020, really? Some people made bread and other people wrote Reylo fan fiction. And then so many Reylo fan fiction authors are like, this is a real novel. Bang. And some of us are on the New York Best.
Yeah.
What am I saying? Yes, thank you. Thank you. My mouth decided to have
No, it's fine. Connection. No, it is definitely taken off, and I love seeing fan fiction. I always believe that about fan fiction. I'm sitting here going, I see so many people dumping so much time and effort into an AU and posting it online and being like, God, there is just so much here that you could just take it and you could just run with it and publish it and just, at least get a little bit of money back for, all that time that you've put into it.
Yeah.
I'm not against posting. I have fan fiction on
as is proper
on AO3. But anything that's a substantial length, I self-publish, especially if it's an AU, because there's just, if I'm going to spend that much time to it, I need to try to, at least earn something back for that time
and share it with the world in a different way.
Exactly. And I think that that's fair. But again, no knocking anyone who, decides that they just want to post it on fanfic, and that is cool.
If there's one thing you and I have learned, is that self-publishing is a bitch. It's a bitch. It
is a fickle mistress. That's for sure.
It has whips and chains that I did not ask for. There are people who are like, give me the whips and chains. I'm like, shit, you have whips and chains? What? But even
it is
said that fan fiction has a place and that fan fiction is valid. Some people get down on it, but if you have Neil Gaiman, saying like, this has a place in the world, validation.
No, absolutely. I don't think that any way that you put your story out into the universe, however you're comfortable doing it, is a completely valid way of doing it. I know for me, I try to value my time that I spend, creating, and then putting the effort into doing edits and cover art and all of that part. So if I'm going to create a world out of it, I'm going to try to get something out of it. So again, every avenue is definitely valid, whether you're holding out for traditional or you're, just posting it on your website. That's cool too. However you want to get your story out.
Everybody. Equal opportunity inspiration.
Absolutely. And I believe that about, where I draw inspiration from for my stories too, is like, you get those sparks and you're just like, you know what, I'm going to run with it. And that's what fan fiction is. You just get a spark of something and you're like, but what if, and then you run with it. So, I mean, really, most of us that get those little sparks from watching a movie or a show or reading another book, we're really just taking that spark that could have just been a kernel of fan fiction and run with it. So
yeah. Anything that you want to say to wrap up? Anything inspirational to everybody in the world, because this is YouTube and accessible to everyone?
Well, if you are a reader and you love romance, I have plenty to offer. I know I have a lot that I recommend too. I always post a weekly book recommendation on Instagram, because I'm a big proponent of supporting other authors. So if I read something and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is fantastic, I will definitely let everyone know. I know that my taste runs different from other people's, and everybody has different taste, and that's absolutely okay. Not a problem. But definitely, I try to be open-minded as a reader. And I try to get other readers to be this way too, that if you're not sure, like if you see an author and someone's recommending them to you, you've never read them before, and you're like, well, I'm not sure, download a sample. Amazon or whatever platform that you get your ebooks from, they always offer like a 15% sample. Download the sample and try it. If you want to read the rest of the story, read the rest of the story. Buy the book, read the rest of the story. But there is no cost associated with downloading a sample. I don't know how many samples I've downloaded and been like, oh my God, this is great, and then buy the book and just devour it. So if you're not sure and you're a little hesitant, just try the sample first, give it a shot. And then if you loved it, tell your friends that read You know, word of mouth, I think, is the best way for us to tell people about the books that we love. You know, whether it's our own books, you know, I know it sounds a little weird. You're like, buy my book, it's wonderful. It doesn't sound the same. But if somebody else comes up and is like, oh my God, I read this book, it was so good, and it has all the things that you would love, I mean, absolutely tell people about that. People don't realize how important that piece of it is for marketing. And, you know, and authors, I mean, we can't be everywhere all the time. So it's one way that you can help an author spread the word about their books.
So,
and on,
sorry.
No, go ahead.
No, you first. You first.
Well, I was also going to say, in that vein, also, you know, post a little review. It doesn't have to be big. It doesn't have to be fancy. Tell me what you liked. If you didn't like something, tell me what you didn't like. That's cool too. I'm a big believer in the whole kind of give a little bit of feedback. And, you know, in the same thing, I know the reviews aren't for the author. The reviews aren't for the author. They're for other readers. But I personally like to give that little bit and be like, this is what I liked. This kind of threw me off a little bit, but all in all, it was, you know, well written or whatever. So definitely give a review and tell someone about the book. That's the best advice I can give for that one.
So then let's close with a quote from the movie Annette, because we're rats. And it's like, if you liked it, tell a friend. If you have no friends, tell a stranger tonight.
Exactly.
So
exactly.
Everybody, thank you, Kirsten. And again, all of the links are going to be in the video description. And thanks, guys. Thanks for joining us. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.